Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.
Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, spotlighting the New Orleans area's arts and entertainment scene. Seated at our table tonight, Chuck Perkins, owner of Cafe Istanbul, here to discuss this year's New Orleans Sacred Music Festival. Great to see you again. Hello.
Thank you for having me.
Hi there, of course. Poppy Tooker, she's back, host of the show Louisiana Eats, airing twice weekly on WWNO Radio. Hi. Hello, dear. Bryan Hymel, we're thrilled. New Orleans-born international opera star, most recently at the Met, here to tell us about this nonprofit that really fosters local opera in New Orleans, and we'll talk more about that. And later he's going to sing for us. Danny Boy, we're thrilled. Welcome.
Thank you, Peggy.
Good to see you back here. And of course, Alan Smason of Crescent City Jewish News and TheaterCriticism.com. Hey, Alan.
Hey.
But first, Poppy.
Well, today we're going to start off with some big, long goodbyes. And I just really can't stand that the Banton is, I drove by it last night, all dark and shut up, at the Banton Cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the third oldest continuously operating restaurant after Antoine's and Tujague's in the city. They're older than Commander's Palace, who now move up to that third spot, third oldest. And yet there's almost 50 years then between the founding date of Commander's and Tujague's and Antoine's. So, I mean, this is a huge disparity. This is a huge loss. And I do understand that Wayne and Debbie Pierce want to retire, and that was the way out, but it still really breaks my heart. And I know there's a new buyer, and they don't know if it'll be the Banton. It's not going to ever be the same. That's just the truth of how it is when the family leaves the premise. And I don't know why I haven't read this in the newspaper yet, but I guess Ian McNulty didn't make it to the drag brunch with me at City Park last Sunday when my good friend Peggy Lee was there with a whole table, and she took me aside and said, Poppy, I am retired as of March 1st. After 42 years, I sold 5 Happiness.
Wow.
And she has sold them to, I believe, a restaurant group from Texas. And, you know, Leah Chase always used to say to me, you know, you educate your family right out of the restaurant. And yet, even though she said that, look at the incredible things that the Chases are doing. They're just growing and expanding with all their education. So now Peggy's daughters, one is a surgeon in Los Angeles and the other is a lawyer in Singapore. And so I understand, but I'm still sad. Yeah. And you know, this makes me reminds me of the Manally's disappointment, because Manally's sells, and you know, the truth is that the new family doesn't have the fire for the old family tradition. That leaves with the family. Meaning the Casamentos is now, there's 101 years old. Casamentos is the oldest continuously operating family-owned restaurant in the city. And that's why everybody needs to go to Antoine's, because they have a new spring special. $20.20 is the lunch special, where you get cream of asparagus soup, grilled trout with creamed leeks, and sweet corn and potato pancake. There's a veal francesca, which is a fried veal cutlet with mushroom and artichoke wine sauce, with brown butter egg noodles, and for dessert, bread pudding and strawberry angel food cake. And that's $20.20 at Antoine's. For God's sake, go support our the oldest in the nation at 180 years this year. Now, one of the newest and hottest things in the city is the Blue Giant. And that's at 1300 Magazine Street. And it is just a big deal. It's kind of hard to get in. Bill Jones and Richard Horner, who met at Cochon, their big love is Chinese American food. And this was their comfort food growing up. So they've been working on this a long time, and it's named for the giant blue catfish that are a favorite both in China and, of course, in the American South. There's inventive cocktails like the painkiller. They have that was a very yummy thing on Ash Wednesday, and they make a killer Mai Tai. Their egg rolls. There's the painkiller right there. Their tea service. So much thought went into every detail of this restaurant, and their menu is just familiar and fun, but delicious in a new way. Egg rolls, shrimp wontons with spicy chili crunch, pan-fried shrimp and pork dumplings that are just incredible. Dan Dan noodles, egg foo young. Sounds like old-time Chinese, huh? And Peking duck. Oh, my goodness gracious. It's delicious. They make their own fresh Louisiana oyster sauce and hoisin sauce. They're open for lunch and dinner, and they're closed Tuesdays.
Okay.
And then Nalfi has been canceled or postponed. That was the big news I got right before we sat down. And so I do want to tell everybody that the New Orleans Book Festival, Cheryl Landrew says it's still on. That's for next weekend. Come see me at 11:15 when we have a drag queen brunch panel with Vin Santos and some of the drag queens. And then at 1:45, I'm doing a Joy of Cooking interview with Irma Rombauer's great-grandson, John Becker, and his wife, Megan Scott.
All right. And, of course, this is a week from
This
tomorrow.
is a week from now at Tulane.
And speaking of a week from tomorrow, thank you, Chuck. The New Orleans Sacred Music Festival, now for many years, huh?
It's actually the 9th annual New Orleans Sacred Music Festival.
And this is a Cafe Istanbul and the
well,
Healing Center.
it's in the entire Healing Center, but of course
On
Cafe
St. Clyde.
Istanbul. Cafe Istanbul is a big part of what's going to be happening. And as you know, what we do is we like to bring a lot of sacred music, a representation of this music from all over the world. I mean, there are examples of Japanese sacred music, Jewish sacred music, Muslim sacred music.
We have quite the lineup. We'll be showing some of the performers.
We have quite the lineup. And from what I've been told, it is the only sacred music festival in the country. And so, and it's free, and it's right here in the New Orleans Healing Center.
And of course, Sean Johnston was always a part of it, being a yoga master and having his own band.
Oh, Sean Johnson. I mean, sometimes his band performed there at Cafe Istanbul. I mean, it's quite an experience. We also have Tanya Boyd Cannon. She's going to bring her kids choir, and they are lovely. And in fact, one of the reasons we got to see Tanya Boyd Cannon in the kids choir, they were rehearsing in Cafe Istanbul once. We said, you know what, we're going to have them at the New Orleans Sacred Music Festival. There's a Muslim call to prayer. Right now, there's a group of monks from India who they're already in town, and they've been doing some stuff in and around the Healing Center. I really recommend, for everybody to get out and come and check out the Sacred Music Festival. And I tell you, with all of the differences and stuff, we see sometimes in our society, it is a beautiful representation of what we can be when we're at our best.
And it's free. Donations, of course, are always welcome, but it's a whole day.
It's from 12 noon until 7 p.m. And of course, I'm going to be one of the MCs. Also, Lance Nichols and his wife, Zardis Nichols. Yeah, they're going to help me MC as well. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it. And of course, they just go to the website, the New Orleans Sacred Music
Yes, you can go
Festival for more info.
to the website. Yeah, they have a lot more info.
Very good. Now, Chuck, you just got back from New York, so I have to brag on you. Tell me what you were doing real quick here.
It's actually probably a highlight of my poetry career, but Herlin Riley, he was doing
drummer.
something up at Lincoln Center, and he said he wanted me to write a poem about this connection between New Orleans and Cuba. And so I was really honored by that. So I booked a flight to Cuba, hung out there a while, did a little more reading, and I was able to present that
at Lincoln Center this week.
At Lincoln Center, yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And thank you. And New Orleans Magazine's quiz queen, Julia Street, has a question for us. Last time, Darren James gave us the names of the New Orleans version of a Sicilian sandwich in the store in the French Quarter that made it famous, Bartolotta, and Central Grocery. Now tonight's question. Louisiana has an official state flower as well as an official state wildflower. What are they? Email your answers to steppinout@wyes.org. Our prize is a year subscription to Louisiana Life magazine. Tonight we have a t-shirt with the message "Hot Date" from our friends at wearablevegetables.com. We also have a pair of French Quarter walking tour tickets, courtesy of the Friends of the Cabildo. Check their website for more info. You can go to wyes.org/steppinout for our online calendar, including Danny O'Flaherty in concert tomorrow at the Bayou Playhouse in Lockport at 7:30 p.m. Go to BayouPlayhouse.com for tickets. And as always, check with what is going on, of course, sadly, with our virus situation. I would check any event that's coming up in the next few days. Also, Sybil Morial and Lee Young will be discussing celebrating 100 years of women's right to vote. This free event takes place next Wednesday from noon to 1 at the United States District Court in courtroom 501. To reserve seating, email Women's Vote, and you can go to email Women's Vote at laed.uscourts.gov to make a reservation. And now, Bryan, you've been a busy bee, and congratulations once again on Faust.
Thank you.
This
is the Lincoln Center side of the table.
At the Met. And including being on the radio with the national broadcast as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was really great to be back there in a role that I've done in London and in Paris and in different places. So it's nice to kind of bring some of this French music back to U.S. soil.
Wow.
And it was great. It's back. Nice to be back here in New Orleans as always.
And what's up next for you before we talk about your local nonprofit?
Sure.
Where are you going?
So I'm going next to Philadelphia to do Madame Butterfly there.
Oh.
And then Zurich for the summer, and then I'll be back in the fall.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, what I love is, of course, you're a New Orleans guy, and you and your beautiful wife Irene and family, and Christina Vaya have a nonprofit to foster the love of opera, in addition to the Great New Orleans Opera Association that we have. So it's called opusopera.org. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. So we came up with this idea because opera is kind of a daunting art form. You go into a theater for maybe 2, 3, 4 hours at a time, sometimes in a foreign language, in a cavernous hall like the Mahalia Jackson Theater. And it's a lot to bite off if you're not familiar with the art form. And so what we do is we pair vocal music with other things like wine, philosophy, spirituality, dance, kind of anything that we just think would be a fun event for people to come and get a taste of opera, a taste of music, a taste of wine, a taste of food, a taste of all these things.
We like all those tastes.
Yeah.
Now, as it turned out, you all were planning an event this weekend, but it's been postponed.
Yes.
And so we look forward to getting more details on that in the near future.
Sure, and it was with Delta Festival Ballet, which we were really proud. We put a lot of work into these. It's called Earthly Delights, and so we had the first half hour is cantaloupe French folk songs with piano and clarinet and oboe, and then the second half was this Mahler, Das Lied von der Erde, which is a piece that's it's so rarely done.
So we're hoping you can reschedule that real soon. It was at St. Alphonsus, which is a great space too. But you have kindly agreed to sing a song for us, and let's set this up. You're singing
Oh Danny Boy, and coming up on St. Patrick's Day.
How appropriate. And Peter Collins accompanies you.
Absolutely.
And we're thrilled with that. So now let's see Oh Danny Boy, performed by, of course, Bryan Hymel.
Are calling from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the flowers are dying. It's you must go and I must bide. But call me back when summer's in the meadow, or when the valley's high back when all the flowers are dying, and I am dead as dead I well may be. You'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me, and I shall hear the soft you tread above me, and all my grave will warmer, sweeter be, and you will abandon, tell me that you love me. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
Thank you so much, Bryan. Visit opusopera.org for details on all these upcoming events that are being planned. And you know, March is the month when local Italian Americans, particularly Sicilians, honor St. Joseph with St. Joseph altars on March the 19th. But there's also a newly renovated museum that honors the history and culture of local Italians all year long. Channel 4 anchor Devon Bartolotta, proud of her own Italian American heritage, takes us there.
New Orleans has its French Quarter, the Irish Channel, and food and music that mix cultures from all over the world. Frank Maselli wants to make sure the Italian contributions to the city are also celebrated.
Well, our mission is to honor and celebrate the American Italian culture, past, present, and future.
Maselli is chairman of the American Italian Cultural Center, and if you haven't heard of it or its museum on South Peters Street, Maselli is ready to change that. Step into the newly renovated museum and you'll learn that Italians and Italian Americans have contributed to life in New Orleans for more than 300 years.
Italians have actually been a part of New Orleans since the very beginning. If you go back to the early explorations, you had individuals like Enrico de Tonti who were here with De La Salle and Iberville. They were part of New Orleans even before Italy was its own country. Going forward, there was a mass influx of Italians into the New Orleans area between 1880 and the close of the First World War, and they basically became the French Quarter. In fact, from the 1900s through the 19-teens, French Quarter was known as Little Palermo.
When you talk about Italians, of course, you talk about food, and that's covered here, from the St. Joseph's altar traditions to fruit and vegetable peddlers, even the Roman candy man. But this is also a place to learn about local Italian Americans' success in sports, music, politics, and even their service in World War II. In one exhibit, visitors can also learn about their own personal history.
People of Sicilian descent can come in and put their name. They can go to the letter, which their name starts with, and then they'll look down the list, they'll find the name, they touch the name, and it'll tell them generally where people with that name came from in Sicily.
While the museum has been renovated and expanded, its roots go back more than 35 years. It was founded by Maselli's father, Joseph.
My father had a passion for it, and I think I just inherited his passion. I think it's a worthwhile thing to keep this going, right? For the last 100 years, the Italians have been a significant part of New Orleans culture.
French and Spanish culture are more readily seen in the architecture. I think people are surprised to find out just how much Italians have contributed to the culture of New Orleans.
I'm WWL-TV's Devon Bartolotta for Steppin' Out.
And The American Italian Museum is located at 537 South Peters Street in the Warehouse District, and that's behind the Piazza d'Italia. There will be an official ribbon cutting ceremony. That's next Thursday on St. Joseph's Day, and the museum is open Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Admission is $10 with guided tours available for $20. And there are discounts for students as well and seniors. Visit AmericanItalianCulturalCenter.com to learn more. And special thanks to Dominic Massa for this feature. And now, Alan.
Well, you know, the floodgates opened up. It's after Mardi Gras now, so all of the plays and the musicals are coming on. I want to let you know about a couple of shows that are just opening or have just opened this past week. The first of these shows is August Wilson's The Piano Lesson, which netted him his second Pulitzer Prize. The aptly titled piano lesson is not really what you might think, a story about somebody getting a lesson on how to play the piano, but really is the lesson that the piano gives to this family. Basically, they're affected by the piano. And why is that? Well, it really is a battle over the piano that begins to take place when a fellow by the name of Boy Willie, played by Ronaldo McClinton, comes up from the South to sell watermelons. And in Pittsburgh, he's trying to basically sell off the family piano. Doesn't realize the history that's attached to it. His sister Bernice, played by Lauren E. Turner, objects to the sale of the piano because it really has a lot of their family history steeped within it. Matter of fact, many of her ancestors were either sold or have their history represented in carvings on the piano. So it really is resonating with the history of slavery and again, the culture clash between North and South. This is set in the Depression in the North in Pittsburgh. And again, many of the people have been persecuted in the South, and they've come up north to Pittsburgh to flee from that persecution. Merrill Burkett plays Lyman, who accompanies Boy Willie. He's on the run from the South and coming up there to sell watermelons, but also to seek some freedom. Zeb Hollins III is also very good in this play. He plays Uncle Doker, who tries to really plead for peace and harmony in the family, with Brian Demon as Avery Brown playing Bernice's love interest, if you will. He is a preacher interested in Bernice and trying, to kind of like weigh between the good and the bad and all of that. The fantastic performances also are generated by Zeb Hollins III, as I mentioned, and Lance Nichols. Unbelievable. We'd mentioned him earlier in the show as Whining Boy. He's an actual piano player who maybe has a little bit more of a storied history than he wants to let on. There's a lot of spirituality to this play, a lot of ghosts that are literally written into it, and again, the ghosts of the present also loom large. This is really worthwhile checking it out. Le Petit. This is, again, a new director that I was not really too familiar with, Dawn Monique Williams. She did a fantastic job, again, over at Le Petit, so keep that in mind. Another play that I really wanted to talk about, it really is a musical. Why do I say it's a musical? It really is a play with music, but it really is a musical because the songs within it actually advance the characters and advance the plot in some way. But there's a lot less music in Peter and the Starcatcher, currently playing at Rivertown Theaters, than there is in, let's say, some of the other musicals you might be accustomed to. One of the best parts of this, again, is Shelby Mack. Now, Shelby has been Shelby Mack. She now goes by the name Michelle McElry. And Michelle, or Shelby as you want to refer to in the past, it does a great job as the only girl in the entire cast. Gary Rucker plays Black Stash. And of course, the boy, who is Peter, the prequel, if you will, to Peter Pan, is played by Joe Cinerelli. Unbelievable performances, great job of really all putting on the British accents, but it's a sparse, it's a farce, it's really just a wonderful kind of a way of looking at the Peter Pan tale and representing it in a way that makes it lively again and also fresh. Again, I would recommend it highly for those of you who want to catch a little bit of a difference for your kids. Check that out. Also coming up at the Sanger, Mean Girls. This is the Broadway premiere here for us here in this town. It only was on Broadway a couple of years ago. This is the Tina Fey vehicle based on her movie, and the music is by none other than her husband. Also, coming up at the World War II Museum, we have two shows that are going to be presented. First is one that you really should know about. This is Hetty Lamar. Hedy Lamar, the life and inventions of Hedy Lamar. People don't realize it, but Hedy Lamar was a person who was inducted into the Inventors Hall of Fame back in 2014. She is, of course, a great classic beauty, considered the most beautiful woman in the world during her time. And also another show at the World War II Museum that's coming up is going to be about the blonde bombshells. That's called We'll Meet Again. This is directed by Hannah Rochelle. Should be a great, great offering.
All right, great. Now time for our picks. Chuck.
March 26th, coming to Cafe Istanbul, the Tennessee Williams Festival. They're going to be having a poetry slam at Cafe Istanbul. I'm going to be emceeing that.
All right.
Come and hang out.
I'm so glad. Poppy.
Speaking of the Tennessee Williams Festival, we'll be hosting a drag brunch on the Sunday of the event, March 29th, at the Bourbon House.
All right. Brian.
Yes, keep your eyes open for a rebroadcast of great performances. My debut of Les Troyens at the Metropolitan Opera.
Oh, right. Gee, what year was that?
It was 2012,
Wow.
I think.
That's great. Alan.
You know, a few years ago, Loyola University gave Kander and Ebb an award for their contributions to Broadway. Well, guess what? Cabaret is coming back to Loyola University, directed by Tom Chianfiki and Brian Batt. So go check that out starting up next weekend.
Okay, and now my picks. We have a free concert and discussion. New Orleans, home of the blues, will take place this Sunday at 3 p.m. at Xavier University's Center. It's the McCaffrey Ballroom. Clarinetist and bandleader Dr. Michael White and historian will be featured, as well as blues artist and actor Chris Thomas King. Both will speak on the mythicized origins and early history of the blues and the role that New Orleans has in that history. They'll also perform. For a list of St. Joseph altars, visit wwltv.com. Check that out. Also, you can visit one of the largest St. Joseph altars on the East Bank, and that's at St. Francis Xavier. The St. Joseph Altar Society there, located at 444 Metairie Road. Public viewing takes place Wednesday, March 18th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Thursday, of course, March 19th. There will be an 8 a.m. Mass and viewing from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. There's also the public feeding, a public meal from 11:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. And don't forget, you can join us here at WYES 916 Navarre Avenue for WYES's screening of Masterpiece Theater's World on Fire, set during World War II. That's next Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. Refreshments, and there'll be a screening beginning at 7:15 in the Paulette and Frank Stewart Innovation Center for Educational Media. Tickets are just $20, helps WYES. Visit wyes.org/events to purchase your tickets. Thank you all so very much, and thank you very much for watching. Good night.
Support for Steppin Out comes in part from the Kristovich family in honor of Mary Lou and Bill Kristovich. This program is sponsored in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support the arts and culture in the greater New Orleans area.